So anytime I have a question about the SEC, I lean on Heath Cline. Heath, I reached out to you early Friday, and I was like, hey, I think this Nico thing is going to have some real legs going into the next week. Oh, boy. Did I read that one correctly? How crazy has it been in SEC country and the South with Nico and Tennessee?
It's been pretty wild. I think a lot of people really, Steve, didn't imagine that it would end like this. Even when the word came down on Thursday, hey, there's an issue, I think people, they'll get it worked out. Something will happen. And then when on Friday he skips practice, then all of a sudden you realize there's really only one way this could end, and it's going to be that he's got to leave. And so now, I mean, here you are. You're talking about a playoff team that at best right now is looking for a quarterback in the portal or going with a guy that they clearly weren't ready to start. And the implications of this are going to be enormous.
This did not develop, middle of last week. How far back were you hearing about issues with Nico in Tennessee?
We first heard about that there was a chance he might go in the portal in December, but it was like a day or two before the end of it. And there were some other kids that did go in the portal, and then nothing came of it. And so it's like, okay, well, maybe it was a rumor, or maybe they threw him a few more bucks. I mean, it's not like they announce publicly when they give every kid more money. So I think everybody just assumed, okay, well, he's still going to be there, because why would you not be there if you stayed through the first transfer portal? What it turns out is apparently he and his family, and it's probably more dad that calculated this along with whoever advises him, thought, well, we'll wait till spring and then we'll kind of have him over a barrel and they'll give us. And as they found out, that is not in fact how this thing went at all.
There are reports out there with I guess coming from Josh Pate, who I really didn't know Josh, but I guess he's become really big on the internet. And supposedly he's claiming that Nico tried to sit out playoff game in the playoffs last year, was battling over money back then. Have you heard that?
None of the guys I've talked to at Tennessee have said that. That doesn't mean Josh is wrong, because who knows who he's talking to and what he's basing that on.
Right.
But there were guys that tried to get money out of that program last year. If you look, they did have some other kids transfer. And one thing that I think is important, Steve, is I think people have thought this is all about the money. Money's part of it. It's a big part of it, obviously. But they actually were hoping to land some kids in the transfer portal that would improve this team. And Team Nico is not happy with what they had at receiver right now. Wow. Kids like Squirrel White left and went to FSU. They had to fight to hold on to Mike Matthews, a 5-star from last year that did not really produce much, but that they're counting on giving them more this year. So it really created a whole situation where it wasn't just money. It was also, you're not giving him enough support. And what's funny is you can't simultaneously say, give me $2 million more, and also, by the way, go get us some receivers. That doesn't add up real well either.
Heath Cline is with us. Talk about the one college football show you do. I know you host and you produce that one, and of course you do a lot of work for 680 to the Fan. But I know it's hardcore SEC and college football all year long. So pimp that for the audience here in Vegas.
I do a couple of hours every day. It's called the Chuck Oliver Show, and it's all college football, focused on the South, but not exclusively the South. We just had a Notre Dame guest today, for example. So we just do 2 hours of nothing but college football talk all year long. You can find the podcast. Just look at Chuck Oliver's Show wherever you get your podcasts, and you should be able to find it. And if you're into college football, we'd love you to check us out.
So say this started around the playoffs, right? There was a beef over money going that far back. Why did Heupel let it go this long?
I think that they didn't really have a lot of choice besides let it play out, because in the end, I mean, they can negotiate, but unless you're prepared to go in the portal, then it doesn't really matter. And what's so crazy that so much. I mean, you have a situation where this group of teams that they have cut out by not getting in the fall, they lose 15 teams. The SEC, he cannot transfer within the conference. It's not allowed. It doesn't matter if, I don't know, Lane Kiffin wanted to give him $20 million. He can't take it and play in 2025. So you've cut out the conference that has the most schools that are willing to be cutthroat and spend money no matter what. You've cut them out of your market completely by waiting this long. I honestly don't know who they think is going to give him more than he was going to make at Tennessee. And that's before you talk about whatever drop-off you have in your situation. I mean, the teams are getting talked about Tulane is a possibility, for example. I mean, okay, great. Go to Tulane. Are you going to really build an NFL career at Tulane in 2025?
I mean, you could, but you're not going to get $4 million for doing it. I don't think they have that kind of budget. I saw what I view. I'm very pro player, like to a fault. I can admit that, and you can tell me if I'm being a moron here. I saw a lot of vicious tweets about the kid. I thought, man, fans turn on guys really quickly and show their true feelings. But I saw others who were kind of media people, content creators saying, hey, this is great. This is exactly what college football needed. It's a market correction. Do you agree with that?
I think it is useful in the sense that we know what happened when you had, for example, in free agency, when the owners tried to collude against the players, and you have Andre Dawson having to sign for $500,000 just to get off the concrete in Montreal and get to Wrigley Field. That collusion got called out in court and they lost. You don't have the issue of collusion here. But what you do have is you have people who've been dying for something, anything that would convince kids there's not always another bag of money waiting. All you have to do is ask. And so this has created that, because this is a guy, Steve, I don't know how much you've seen of him. The raw talent is clearly there for him to be an NFL prospect. But at the same time, he was at best a mid-tier SEC quarterback in his first year. That's just not the kind of thing that makes somebody say, let's almost double your NIL money. And yet, for whatever reason, his people believed it. And I think, we talked about Tulane for a second there. I think part of it is a kid like Darian Mensah, who's a really nice player for Tulane that first year, goes to Duke for what's reported at about $3.5 to $4 million. And so they're saying, well, if that guy got that money, then surely we'll get that money. But there is a point where no one actually wants to give you that money, and they look like they may have found it.
Heath Cline's up on Cofield Company. He's a SEC insider, does the Chuck Oliver show, does work with 680 The Fan in Atlanta. I thought you made an interesting point. I don't know if I agree with it, but I could see this, happening. Questions of the next stop. Would players look at Nico and go, can we trust this guy?
I think it's a huge issue because, look, we saw what happened, and you mentioned the Josh report. I don't know that that's true. I've not independently confirmed it, but if it's at least something that's out there, let's say that, for example, this is a school that I can't imagine is a playoff contender, but let's say that UCLA, one of the schools that's been speculated about for him, does bring him in there. Aren't you at least a little worried if you're a player? Hey, if we have success, this guy might be asking for more. This guy might decide to walk on us. And by the way, are we building something for the future, or are we just for 1 year where he got his best deal and in 2026 it's on to somewhere else, wherever he thinks he can get his next best deal? I just think it's really, really tough, especially when you don't get a spring football with your guys. You're only going to get fall and maybe some of summer, to build that level of trust to be the leader of a football team.
Talking about Nico at Tennessee, out with the Volunteers. He's in the portal, wanted $4 million, reportedly was making around $2.2 million. First, short-lived holdout around college football. My thought is we could see coaches around the country kind of band together and say, we're not taking this kid in an effort to, teach him a lesson. But I also know that coaches have zero discipline. First of all, do you think there will be a tight-knit group that just says, you know what, we need to send a message, we're not picking this guy up?
I don't think it'll be an organized thing, but I do think, Steve, at least what seems to be true is that when his people reached out to Oregon, Dan Lanning, at least it's been claimed, reached out to Tennessee and said, hey, just so you know, they're trying to peddle him to us. We're not interested, but they tried. And that may have been part of what kind of accelerated this process in the first place, is this idea that, okay, they're not just negotiating with you, Tennessee. They've actually started trying to negotiate elsewhere. I do think when you have a kid that has had the issues that this one has had with the people around him, you're just going to have a harder time finding teams with coaches that say, I want to sign up for this right now. There's another kid that in Jaden Rashada is out there in the portal right now, Steve, a guy who at one point was enough of a battle for Florida and Miami, for Florida to make a crazy commitment salary-wise that they then couldn't make. He goes to Arizona State. He's there a year. Then he's on to Georgia. And now he's in the portal again. And I think you have to look at the fact the only thing the guy's done is play a couple of games at Arizona State and then sue Florida's coach. And I don't think it's collusion. I just think you've got a lot of guys that are looking at him and saying, I don't need this headache in my life. Nico is more talented than Rashada, and he's got more experience than Rashada. But Steve, again, look at those three power conferences. how many of them need a quarterback to begin with?
Right.
And even more of those group that do need a quarterback, how many of them are willing to spend this kind of money or even talk about spending this kind of money and deal with the possible headache?
I do think what might happen is the price gets lower. Boosters start seeing that the price is lower at certain stops. They look at their quarterback room in certain programs and are like, this isn't good enough. If the price is right, I think someone will take him on for his troubles. It may not work out monetarily on the short end for Team Nico, but I don't believe that everyone around college football at the, say a high level and mid level is disciplined enough to stay away from him.
That's probably fair. You're right. If he doesn't have to get the money, if for example, UCLA says, hey, $1 million, take it or leave it, maybe that's where he winds up. But you just look at the schools people are talking about. A Syracuse, for example, doesn't have an established quarterback yet. They named a kid from LSU, Ricky Collins, their starter, but he's not locked in. So, maybe you get a deal there. But again, is Syracuse really a great launch pad? UNC reportedly has taken Gio Lopez, the kid who was the quarterback at South Alabama. Would Belichick, if the price dropped far enough, be willing to take 2 quarterbacks and let him battle it out? I can't rule it out, I guess, but I sure don't see anybody, Steve, that's going to give him $2 million plus that also needs a quarterback right now.
And you said Tennessee's situation now without Nico is what?
It's expected they'll try and get a kid in the portal.
Exactly.
We don't know who that would be, yeah. But they do have a kid, Steve. I will say this. George McIntyre this year was a 5-star by some schools. He's really skinny. We talked to a guy from up there today on the show, and he was saying the big question with him is just physically, is he ready to hold up for a year of SEC play as a freshman? It's not what they would have wanted to do. But it's not like if they can't go find somebody in the portal, they have no hope. This kid has a lot of talent. They're excited about him. They just didn't plan on having to use him in 2025.